All right, I'm back. I'm vertical. I'm the appropriate dimension for this media platform. Hi, everybody. I'm going to give everyone a couple more minutes to join in. Hello. Thank you all for bearing with my technological disadvancement. You'd think that with all of the zooming and stuff that I would be just like super up on it, and I can zoom very well, but all right. So
Hello. Not getting any volume here. Um,
my audio now?
oh,
Oh, it was my
now I can hear you.
headphones. Oh, it was my headphones.
Come on.
Hi.
Hey, listen, I'm an expert, so if you have any questions technologically speaking, just talk to
I
me.
was gonna say I've been Zooming and I've been Google
Yeah.
Meeting, and I've done a solo Instagram live before, but never done it with like a group. And then to do like a test earlier today felt weird because then it would be like, oh, guys, we're just testing, and that's what we're doing now. So either way, they had to deal with the
Right.
weirdness. How are you? You have a much cooler backdrop than I do.
Oh, thanks. It's just the paint on my
Oh,
walls.
nice.
But thanks. Appreciate it. I'm fine. How are you?
I'm pretty solid. I'm excited. I've been nervous a little bit today to go live because it's been so long since I've not only had like uh you know multiple humans interaction, right? Because I'm like quarantining with
Yeah.
my husband and my 6 month old 7 month old baby. So like the idea that there's like people, like the 15 people that are watching us right now. Hi everyone. I'm like, oh right,
Right.
right. So like I showered today. I washed
Yeah.
my hair. I feel very prepared. It physically, but also I was just excited to get excited about something. It's been a very bizarre few months for everyone, for the world globally. So I think we can all kind
Right.
of maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm projecting, but sometimes it feels silly to get excited about something that is not uh, a global affecting thing, right? And then what I realized earlier today when I was like prepping for this was that television is a global affecting thing. Storytelling is a global affecting thing. And, you know, the way that people connect, especially during times of, turmoil and, you know,
Mhm.
sadness, right? Like the way that we connect to art of all mediums is always in direct relation to what's happening to us outside the outside stimuli of the world. So I actually just got really excited to know that we were going to zone in on something for like an hour and we were just going to like hardcore nerd into it. Because as I told you in my email, and guys, so you can see this, I have pages of notes on this show. It has been a while since I've gotten to like fully nerd out about something. So mostly
Yeah.
just excited and like just happy that this series happened, and felt taken care of as a Star Trek fan,
Right.
maybe the opposite of a Star Wars fan currently. um,
Could be. Could be. No comment.
right. But yeah, I feel I'm excited and I'm just grateful that I just got to like binge this show over a couple of days last week, and it really like, brought some joy to my life. So I'm hoping that everybody that's watching, that has, left some awesome comments about engaging and setting phasers to stun. I hope that it's all, brought everybody the same amount of, I don't know, escapism, but in a cool, joyful way. So what was your first takeaway from the first season of Picard as a whole, as a long-standing Star Trek fan?
It was a huge relief, gigantic relief. first of all, bottom line, the fact that it even happened,
Right.
like that we're talking about a show starring Patrick Stewart as Picard 20 years later.
Yeah.
How is that not a dream that we're having? You
Oh,
know?
it is. And it,
Uh,
like, it is.
oh, you know, and not a big deal. Like, you know, Data's kind of in it, and Riker's kind of in
Oh,
it, and Troy's kind of in it. Okay, sure, yeah,
sorry, but
that shouldn't be happening.
one point, we start the series by seeing Data. Like the first
Yeah,
people we see in the series are Picard and Data. So what the creators actually were doing was saying, listen, we're starting off a brand new series, but we're letting you know right off the bat that we're like connecting you to the thread of the mythology of this world, which I really respect, because I think that you can tell that it's a completely different thematic representation, right? And the way that they're presenting it tonally is so different. But I was crying immediately. The second I saw Data's hand in that field painting, I was just like crying.
yeah. They knew what they were doing, setting us up, especially in that like first episode of like, okay, I know you're all nervous. I know you all want this to go well. It's gonna go well.
It's gonna go.
You know, they know that they need to take care of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna get it right away. For those of you who have never joined us before, Screen Club, we say it's like a book club that you can binge watch. So we get into it real deep, right? I am a filmmaker myself. I have a media communications degree, and Caleb and other film and television experts have joined us throughout the season. We started this last summer, and we typically do it live at the Micro Cinema at the Wealthy Theater. But given the state of everything and wanting to make sure that people were safe and healthy at home, we decided to move it virtual for this one. But kind of, I like get very nerdy in this. I have like a PowerPoint and slideshows. I don't have a laser pointer, but then I also realized that technically a laser pointer is just a laser and you are the pointer. So I realized early on I didn't need that. But when I say I have notes. So I want to get into the first major theme that we're seeing in this series compared to Next Generation, where we first met Picard, which is something that you hit on in your email, but I in a couple different ways really honed in on it, is that this idea of self-image versus how other people, right? So we start off Picard and he's like at this amazing chateau. Oh, BT dubs, we're gonna have spoilers if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's mention that.
Spoiler,
Definitely
spoiler alert. So when we meet Picard and he's like chilling at this like chateau on Earth in Paris and stuff, or in France rather, you can kind of see he's got like an old retired glory days vibe to him. And then as we slowly see him interact with other people, within like the first like 2 episodes, 3 different people call him out for being like selfish and arrogant, like call it. And so I loved that idea that pretty much the entire series he's wrestling not only with like a new crew and a brain tumor and like all of the like subplots, but he's also like dealing with this idea that like maybe he wasn't exactly like the Federation's white knight that he saw himself as. So do you want to like add more to that? Because I know that was part of what you honed in on too.
No, I just thought it was almost kind of a fake out in the beginning where it's like, oh, great, this is going to be, just easygoing, fun, Picard. And it's like, no, I mean, Starfleet has definitely changed. He's remembered in the halls of infamy, but you got to assume too that just like any celebrity or any great person in the world, there are going to be people who say, well, I don't think that what he did was right, and I disagree with this thing and this thing, and there's still people around who hold him accountable for deaths from the Borg after he made the call to send Hugh back to the collective without the. Sorry, I'm jumping right into like nerdy stuff. With Hugh in the iBorg episode, Picard is the one who makes the call ultimately to not send Hugh back with a virus that would potentially destroy the Borg. So right there, there's people who say, well, you know, my sister was on a starship, you know, 2 days after that,
Right.
and the Borg attacked and killed her, and it's your fault, Picard. You know, so just as many people that think of him as this grand hero might think of him grudgingly, or think, you know, well, he's not the person that everybody says he is, or he's, you know, uh, kind of just his legend is overblown or something. And it's easy, I think, for him to not think about that stuff when he's on his vineyard with his beautiful, you know, caretaker's situation and his great dog and
Oh my
everything, and
God.
just, you know, sipping wine.
Yeah.
You know, number one, shout out. Yeah, so I thought that was a really brave decision for them to go that direction instead of just purely, you know, fan service, nostalgia. Everything's got a rosy glow. It's definitely the darker direction and the more difficult direction to take it. Whether it was always successful, I don't know, but I think that I really respect them for trying to go in that direction.
Well, and I think to that point, when we when he goes back to visit the Co-op Malat and he get basically Elnor, and we see the Romulan resettlement that he was a part of, they did a great job,
Right.
like mirroring, you know, when he came back right after the resettlement, people were like running up to him when he beamed down, and you know,
Right.
he had his cool like Panama Jack hat on and was wearing a lot of like linens,
Yeah.
and then, you know, it flashes to this like new time that he hits there, and not only like does like no one come up to him, it's like they're nervous because all of a sudden it's a human and there are clear signs it's Romulan only. So it was a really interesting
Right.
like way to visually juxtapose that, I think, and also kind of show there are consequences to everything, right? And I'm gonna kind of flow through a lot of different concepts because when our special guest gets here later, we actually have a really fantastic opportunity because he was also a guest star, pretty integral guest star on another show that we talked about called The Good Place. And so The Good Place is an NBC comedy, just ended a run, and among other things, it is a very palatable way to deal with a lot of philosophical questions, right? One of them being like, what makes a person good? And in this concept of goodness being a quantifiable factor, right? It's typically quantified by the amount of uh, benefit weighed versus the amount of harm done in a situation, right? Like that's how we're kind of quantifying it. And so that show really delves into it in a lot of different nuanced ways and with like a lot of like butt jokes in between. So it's really great. But then also this show doing that as well kind of has really it's it's very successful in a lot of ways, but I also think that it's unpacked in a lot of different like storytelling tools, right? So we see it really clearly with Picard and him having to physically deal with people being like, yeah, man, you just like left me. Like Elnor was like, yeah, you just bounced, like you never came back. But then also, and I want to get into this in a whole other way, when we see the character of Dr. Girardi, who later, obviously in the season, we know, you know, Commodore O has kind of talked to her. She's vocal in message. She's let her see what O's terrifying vision of the future could be, that we know is really based on something that happened in the past and is just a projection of fears, right? And this is the thing that keeps getting hit on so many times in the season. So I was really struck by this Girardi character, man, because first of all, she has zero consequences for killing addicts. Like none. Like if they're angry with her for like an episode and Rios is kind of like, I don't know if I can kiss you. There's like no long-term consequences. Yes, she does turn heel later, and she does like once we're around the synthetics, you know, she does help with that, but she basically is like consequence free, and she was an instrument of really messing a lot of stuff up because of her being a tool of someone else's fear. And I think it was a really interesting way, and I don't know if this is like the intent of the showrunners, but I thought it was a really interesting way to kind of mirror how white women statistically vote against their demographic. Us, we do it, it's us. But we also see this like mirrored in a lot of, you know, like I mean, if we look at like even like the 2018 like midterm elections with like Stacey Abrams and Kemp in Georgia, right? Like statistically, we're seeing women vote for, like white women vote for Donald Trump and Brian Kemp, and you know, it like whatever that dude in Texas is that sucks, the governor. Uh, but like it's a narrative we're seeing a lot, right? Like, and historically, especially in America, we've seen white women being a tool of patriarchal oppression. And so I think it's a really interesting way to kind of almost make Picard face a lot of that stuff, right? And then like Girardi has
Mm-hmm.
to face none of it. Like it's there's like part of the crew at the end when she like puts her hand on Rios and he's all like engaged. Now, unless there's like
Right.
a comeuppance in season 2, which could happen, that's going to be a problem for
Yeah.
me long term narratively, because I feel like I don't buy into that all the way. So I'd be curious, like, how did you feel about that whole Girardi arc?
Well, I didn't think of it in the way that you mention it, but it absolutely lines up. I wouldn't be surprised if that was part of the intention to weave that into the narrative. I think it's insane that, I mean, it's not like she just killed a guy.
Right, like she
We're
the
led to
guy.
believe at that point she killed the only person in the universe that we know of who has been able to get closest to Noonien Soong and his ability to create androids and synthetic life. So, like, we really need that guy if we're ever going to want to do this again. Like, it seems like Bruce Maddox kind of disappears, and she's talking about like, yeah, we can't, we haven't been able to recreate data, we haven't been able to recreate things on that level at all. Like, only Noonien Soong could do it. And when we're introduced to Maddox too, it's before we know that Noonien Soong apparently had uh, a son that is also a genius, mad scientist, he calls himself. Um, so that's a really important guy to not kill. That's not just like, oh yeah, you ran down a stranger on the street.
And then it was
Not that it's more important or less important to kill one person or another, but
right.
like this is a guy.
Well, because it even seems like
I was shocked that they killed him.
well, but Jazel in the episode 5, the Stardust City Rag episode, she even
Mm-hmm.
doesn't kill him because she understands the value of like a trade in that. So and again, what they try to hone in on, I think, is that Girardi was like poisoned, right, by this fear. She was poisoned by it.
Right.
But I don't know. I don't think I bought her like all of a sudden being get. I don't know. There were too many turns. Like when I look at my notes and literally like what I wrote as I was like writing it, I wrote these twists and turns with like a bunch of exclamation points because
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe it just didn't feel earned all the way. I don't know. I would like to see where they go.
A little rushed. Yeah, I hope it pays off a little bit more in the second season. The way that I think about it is neither of us have had a mind meld done to us. But if somebody came up to you and said, here's what's going to happen in the future, and you saw all this stuff and it was really traumatic and it made you puke, um, wouldn't like 1% of you be like, I wonder if that isn't true though. I wonder if that's,
Well, of course.
if I was brainwashed. I wonder if maybe that's just me being paranoid and just double, thinking everything, but I wouldn't just go, oh yeah, that's the gospel truth. That's exactly it.
Oh, you
So maybe that's another kind of saying.
you would question it, the mind meld.
Sure. I mean, I find it strange that no part of her questioned it. She was instantly like, oh yeah, well that's what's going to happen then. I just have to do this now.
We have a comment from
But
Merriman David. He says that he thinks it's the same critique he has of Discovery
Discovery,
and Picard. Too much plot, too fast. It's hard for it to breathe and feel earned. I would agree with that for a lot of things. I think I will say I do overall think that it is like a fantastic season of show, just if I were to
yeah.
overall gauge it. But I do, yeah, I would agree with that comment. David, is that it just feels, but I don't think that they were trying to fit too much fan service into it, if that makes sense. Like
No,
pushing didn't feel like it was pandering. It felt like they genuinely were trying to like conceptually fit a lot in there, which is a great way for me to segue into one of the other kind of topics that I have that we also did kind of talk about, and we have talked about in other shows, is sort of like this idea of sentience and consciousness being what makes someone real, right? We haven't talked about this as a show, but have you seen that show Westworld, or know of it
I'm
enough?
pretty familiar with it. I haven't seen it though.
So
So
I feel like it's interesting that that's just a narrative that we've been like pretty regularly dealing with lately, is this idea of like artificial intelligence gaining consciousness, and that being the marker of humanity specifically, right? So with this, obviously we're not talking about the idea of humanity, because we're talking about a world that had a creative world that is interspecies, right? So the idea of humanity is not based on your species, it's based on your personhood, your soul, I guess, right? um we see Soji and Daj to an extent, but but we see, I don't know, it's like uh people didn't think of them as real and valued until she gained this consciousness, but then for her to gain the consciousness, there has to be an element of trauma so forceful for her that it like it unlocked both of them, you know what I mean? So I don't know, there's something about that narrative that, and maybe it's because I'm a new parent too, and I have like a 7-month-old kid downstairs, so I'm like watching a person gain consciousness, right? Like he's aware, he knows what's happening, but
yeah.
I didn't pop out as like a 30-year-old woman able to like very deeply talk about Star Trek, right? This is 31 years of learning and information, and I'm watching this happen on a daily basis with my son. And so I find it very interesting narratively that we keep going back to this idea of like, is sentience what makes someone a real being? I guess, what did you think about that narrative in the show and kind of how it flips in and out?
Well, two things. First of all, because prepping for Picard, I watched a lot of
Mm-hmm.
TNG, which I, every episode a zillion times, but I wanted to kind of go back and hit the greatest hits of Picard on that show. It kind of blew my mind when I realized that in the episode Measure of a Man, where Bruce Maddox is originally
Mm-hmm.
introduced, Maddox comes on the Enterprise wanting to take Data away to study him to create a race of Datas, because he doesn't see Data as a sentient person.
Right.
He doesn't see him as, anything approaching a human being. Picard is the one who convinces him that he's wrong. So Maddox leaves that episode going, yeah, maybe I am wrong. Maybe there's a future for them that involves sentience and integration into society. Completely changes his mind. Now we're here, where Maddox is,
Wouldn't that
is the number one cause of androids, of synths in the
do
universe.
you think maybe that's the same reason why Picard didn't send the virus with Hugh for the Borgs, is that there was a part of him that was convinced by Hugh, because obviously
Yeah.
later that Picard
Right.
clearly has like trauma from his time collective, but Hugh's belief that they can be reclaimed is so deep. Like, do you feel similarly that maybe why that move happened? Or obviously we're talking about something that happened before Picard.
Well, yeah. Yeah. I mean, you think about the fact that if they're doing this whole reclamation of the XBs,
Mm-hmm.
every single Borg that that goes through that process and becomes human again basically owes their life to Picard.
Right.
Because if he would have he would have made the decision to wipe them out, they wouldn't have this second chance at humanity. So
Oh.
I just wanted to point that out. I thought it was insane when I really started to think about the Maddox and Picard.
Yeah.
And, I mean, you don't have to see that episode of Next Generation to get the fact that, it's important, but, it helps.
Well, and you mentioned in your email about wondering if it was going to be lore at the end.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why that was. I'm not usually one who watches things and starts to think ahead. I like to just kind of let it happen and be surprised. I'm not trying to solve the mystery, but the second that I saw, what's his name, Alton Soon,
Yeah.
I was like, ah, oh, that's Lore. It's got to be Lore. He's got something evil planned. I don't remember where we left Lore. I think we left
He
him,
dismantled.
generally kind of thing where
No, they dismantled him.
he like it,
The emotion that like chip back in Data, even though it was like damaged. Remember?
well, sure they did. A lot of people die and then all of a sudden they show up again. Yeah, they dismantled it. They threw him in the garbage and then a janitor came and put him back together later that night. That's how these things work.
Space janitor, just all of a sudden.
Right. Yeah.
um. So, oh, there's so much to cover.
Well,
You
I know there's so much. The other thing that I would bring up real quick is that the synths as conscious or sentient beings, because they have that feeling that they are and they have the desire to be. I think there's a humongous amount to unpack with what we're going through and have been going through for a long time with people who either feel like they are a different gender, feel like they want to self-identify as a different race, they want to self-identify as not human. We're getting into in history right now where there are going to be humans who want to legally self-identify as an android. I mean, that's
well,
going to
sure
happen.
that we don't compare the plight and lives of transgender individuals, but yes.
Well, no, that's what it made me think of, where it could be a parallel to that, where it's,
Yeah.
who's to say what you are, if you want to be something else.
Well,
and that's a humongous conversation, but
to your point, there's the scene in the Nepenthe episode when Soji gets called an android for the first time by Troy's daughter, and there's like a scene later where she's like laying in the bunk bed and she's like, actually, up until the android, I was still holding on to the hope that I was human. And the note that I found was like, it's really interesting how other people's opinions and what other people view us as can really affect the way that we view ourselves. So I think that is to what your point you're saying is like that disassociation of not being able to ground yourself in who you are and feeling so disoriented and so disconnected from who you are. I think that's a very, like you said, it's a very similar struggle for identity that a lot of individuals are going through right now. And I think it's really subtle the way that they kind of, have placed in those kernels, because I think the B side of that story for Soji is, as much as the Romulans are calling her Seb Cheneb and the Destroyer, she's not what they say they are. She is only her choices, right? And that is a huge theme that we see throughout the whole series. That's echoed with, really it's echoed with Dorati, it's echoed with Rafi. You see it with a lot of the characters in that, like, just because someone's our thing doesn't mean you are that thing. And, really the only thing that we can control or be defined by are choices, and I think that it's really, you see it so many times in the show, but you see so many different characters kind of just like making these choices and then having to really deal with them. And I like that towards the end of this season, you even had like, Annika, 7 of 9, with Rios, and they're kind of commiserating, and she's even feeling a little bit, maybe guilty for killing Bajazil when she told Picard she wouldn't, or, guilty for killing Romulan chick, who I never really got her name, girl from the Tal Shiar, but I do know that she played Roger's second wife in Mad Men, so I just kept calling her homegirl from Mad Men every time I would see her on screen.
All right. That's where I recognized her from.
Yep, that's what it was. Yeah, except she has pointy ears, and I didn't realize she was British, or she's just doing a weird British alien accent. I don't know. But yeah, it's I don't know, that idea of like identity is so purposefully popped up throughout this. Almost with every character, they're dealing with some sort of form of identity crisis. I just think that's a really brave, weird way to take a show, especially given, and we talked about this a little bit in email before, is like, especially original Star Trek was much more like episode of the energy. It was not this like noir structured full season has one, you know, kind of main storyline. Like it wasn't, it was more almost like the, you know, episode 5, the Stardust City Rag episodes, where they kind of would dress up in character and go down to a point, which is why I loved that episode for so many reasons. Also, Jonathan Frakes directed that episode as well, which makes,
Yeah.
because I would see that he would be able to pull that off. Um, but yeah, that feeling of identity, that theme of identity for a show that's rooted in science fiction, I find it very poignant that it keeps bringing it back to that reality of trying to ground people to who they are.
Well, I mean, it's a tradition in science fiction television, though, that goes back to, you know, not as much, but at some points with the original series. It's there in Twilight Zone. It's there in Outer
Oh,
Limits. It's there in all these shows that were slyly commenting on what was going on in the world, but they could get away with it because they were saying, "Oh no, this is just science fiction. This is just a monster show,
yep.
whatever." I mean, you know, Next Generation did that all the time, in a really smart and very subtle way, with all kinds of issues of the day and
Literally like
issues that we're still
them and
dealing
homophobia and stuff, like in TNG. They were
with.
like back in
Yeah,
literally like late 80s, like early 90s, they were dealing with that, which is crazy.
yeah,
But I also think that
yeah,
that's a theme that they bring up a lot in Picard too, is xenophobia. Because we even see it really in Picard himself, because when he's talking to Hugh at one point, you know, he just says that he doesn't think Borgs could ever change. Like he's skeptical of the XB project, even though he championed the idea to not kill them all. Like he's still skeptical of
right.
that because of his, obviously because of his time in the collective, but also I think probably because the narrative of like Borgs and stuff, you know? Okay, so we have a couple comments that I'm going to keep really quick. Okay, so Merriman.David said, not just the characters, the Federation itself is struggling with identity in Picard, which is so true. Not only its self-identity, but the way that Picard views it, which I think is interesting. Hi, Eric. And then S. Dylan Photo says, speaking of identity,
Hey, that's my brother.
oh, hey, he says, speaking of identity, are we going to talk about Rios' holographic split identities? Yes, we are. I'm glad you asked, because I
Yeah,
wanted a reason to talk about how hot the character of Captain Rios. So thank you very much, Estel and Photo, for giving me that beautiful segue. All of his characters are
yeah,
attractive. Every accent he does is attractive. The only
yeah. Even the goofy
I
ones.
don't like is that one picture where he doesn't have a beard. And I told my husband right away, I said,
Mm.
I'm going to make a guess. He's not as attractive without facial hair. And they show that throwback photo, and I was right. So, S. Dylan Photo, did you have anything in particular you wanted to talk about other than the hotness? Because I'm sure that that's not what you wanted to land on.
Knowing him, he probably just wants to point it out and how cool it was. I was into Rios in a general way, but once it got to that point where we're led to believe that those are all parts of his personality, basically, that have been split off in that later
I
episode.
think it's less that. It's well, maybe it is. I think my takeaway was that they all looked like him because he just didn't want to have to interact with other people. Like he just
I think there's something to the fact that they're all aspects of his personality, and especially when he's irritated by them, it's clearly him being irritated by parts of himself that he can, you know,
well,
it's like
so
you feel yourself.
why don't they know all the details then about what happened with him? Like why does Rafi have to piece that together? Because if it was
I don't know. I'd have to rewatch that
yeah.
episode. I specifically made a note to rewatch that episode, and I didn't get a chance to. But I was like, oh, this is really good. You know, like writing notes to myself, like revisit
I
this.
did like
So,
how they shot it though. I thought that was really clever. It never felt
mhm,
like superimposed. Like it never felt like I could see the seams, which was always, you know,
yeah,
at this point in my life, you don't look for the seams, but if you see them, you see them. And I liked that it kind of felt continuous. Like a lot of the graphics when they decided to use them felt really cool.
Right.
I wrote a note down that when they went to that one, planet in Star City Rag and they're like descending into the planet, I liked the gag of the pop-ups coming up on the screen that had to
Mm,
like
yeah.
wade through. I thought that was kind of fun. She had to like box somebody or something, didn't she have to like box like a virtual boxer?
Yeah.
Like I thought that
And then the fact that
was
Elnor doesn't get one, he's like, hey, I didn't get one. It's like, why didn't Elnor get one?
also,
It's like they could read his mind and know that like he couldn't be persuaded,
why didn't
which is
Elmer
great.
get cat? Why did they lay the line at the episode where we meet him where he says, I really hope to meet a cat one day, and we never give him the B-side of that line of meeting a cat? Come on, writers.
This is in cut at the last
Set that
minute,
up. Yeah, I just need to see him pick up a cat at the end. Deus Ex
deleted
cat.
scene.
It's fine. Just give him a cat. That's all he wants. Ugh, I was upset about that.
First scene of season 2, him with his own cat.
If it's not, I'll be very upset.
Wait a minute, Spot was in it too. Spot 2
too,
was
but
in
it was when they were on the synth planet and Elnor wasn't there.
Wow,
No,
that's a shame.
I thought of it too because I was like, how are they gonna drop in a cat and like literally not have it be near Elnor? Okay.
Can't you just replicate one? Same place you make your ice cream, can you just make a cat?
I mean, probably, but then I don't want to get into the weird like cross-dimensional
Let's not go
switching
there.
up
We don't have to do
possibilities. Okay, so this is another thing that we see echoed in a few other shows right now, especially The Good Place, is this idea that life's impermanence is what gives it meaning. I thought that was a really interesting thing, especially with Data sort of wanting to die as much as he can. He wanted to be at, and we see this also in The Good Place. Each character in their own time decides when they want to leave the good place to just sort of be done, and it's interesting because the character in The Good Place that I think hits it on the head for me personally is Chidi, where he talks about I believe it's a Buddhist philosophy that when someone dies, it's like a wave returning to the ocean, right? Like the water was always part of you. You were always a part of it, right? But it's the impermanence. It's the fact that life does not last forever. It's the fact that we only have this time. That is what makes things so special. And so I really liked seeing that echoed here in Picard as well, because everybody kind of, to a degree, right, takes that ethos and uses it as a motivator, right? Because Picard is going to go on the mission despite the Federation saying no, and despite his brain abnormality and stuff, like he's gonna go anyway. Riker coming in at the end, like, what am I just gonna like stay in the woods and bake pizza? Just dead. I loved it.
Yeah.
But we see these characters, right, saying like, okay, I've only got one life. I'm not going to like live in fear. I'm not going to let death, right, like impede me. And in a way that also is what gives all of this value and meaning. And so I think it's interesting that we're like putting that in, I don't know, Wednesday night TV, Thursday night TV. Like that's a tall order in terms of like existential philosophy to be trying to get people to digest during an hour-long sci-fi show. So I think like that to me was super bold, because, and I'm curious how you would feel when you watched Star Trek as a kid growing up. Did you kind of always feel like the stories were always gonna go on? You know what I mean? Like you turned your TV off, but like the Enterprise was still out there.
Yeah, but I would say that especially with Next Generation, that was one of the ways that it stuck out to me, where they would get to the end of the episode and I would go, oh, okay, everybody's safe, everything's fine. But then I'd be laying in bed that night just wide-eyed thinking, yeah, but what does this mean for this character? Or like, what are the implications of this? And I think that it advanced my brain much more than it even should have been during those years, because I went right to the heavy implications of some of these things because of the writing, and because they were willing to go there and to implant those little ideas without hitting you over the head with it. So I think that Picard really, as a show, continues that tradition of Next Generation in that way, for sure.
Oh, I love that. So we have a comment. I know it's my friend David, but the handle is Debris Collector. He says that holograms that are modeled after people like EMH and Voyager have personality traits written into the program. So DS9 has a great episode of the process when Dr. Bashir is chosen as the model for the emergency medical hologram. God, I love everyone in this chat. Everyone just like has boom, knowledge. That's great. So I am gonna look at my notes for a second because I know I have a lot more that I want to get to. Oh, okay. So they did a lot of light play with this. Did you notice that? Like with all of the camera work, there's a lot of like.
Oh yeah.
I don't want to let. I mean, a lot of lens flares, right? Like I don't want to.
I felt like I was watching the 2009 J.J. Abrams movie, but with the sun blasting at me in back of the TV. I was like, I need to turn this thing around.
I literally.
There's a lot of
I
that.
don't want to be like, bad mouthing it, but it 100% felt like Abrams, but it wasn't. It, like you said, it wasn't the shine of like galaxy. It literally was like daylight just being like reflected off like a metal table or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. That was a lot. Hello, Dom. Okay, Dom, if you can, we've been talking for a long time, Caleb. Dominic, if you can send me a request to join the video, it should be at the top if you scroll all the way to the top of the comments. So Caleb, our guest has arrived. If you have questions for him,
beautiful,
please let me know. Stay in the comments, everyone, and talking until we get Dom sorted. But he's joining us live from Los Angeles, where it is 3 hours earlier, probably a lot warmer, if I'd have to guess. And do you have any last thoughts, Caleb, before Dominic comes on? What are your thoughts on Mr. Vup? Like, talking about a whole new brand new character created, new species introduced in the character.
I like that you pointed that out. I was like, man, what a responsibility to be like the first person. I mean, because that 20 years from now there's going to be a whole show just about that race or whatever, that alien world. It's going to be some important thing, and just to feel like, oh boy, I was the first one.
Well, and there's a
pretty crazy
behind the scenes video that they released of the creation of that character. So it's like them interviewing the VFX makeup artist, and like they show him on screen and stuff. But they mentioned specifically how they kind of created the character in like concert with Dom. Like they would do these like fittings and stuff, and he basically was talking about how he wanted to make sure that the actor could feel like a part of creating the character. It was a very cool thing. I'll link it for everybody when we end up listing all this stuff, or I'll link it in the book event, because it was very, very cool. But also just like what a dream to be able to just, I don't know, the very first ever Beta Inari. I think that's pretty great. Okay, let's see if this is gonna work. Dominic, are you able to scroll all the top of the comments and then request to be in this live video? Let's see.
Do I need to bust out of here for him to do that?
I don't think so. I think he can just request, but we're all learning together. That's what this is. We're just appreciating our time together as humans. No one's going to judge this, I'm hoping. We're just going to get a bunch of hate emails tomorrow. Okay, wait. He says he did request. Hang on. Okay, maybe you have to go. Hang on. All right. Bye, Caleb. Everyone, thank you. Give Caleb a wave. All right. Thanks, man. Talk to you soon.
Later.
All right. So I think I'm doing this right. Maybe I am not. Oh, my goodness, everyone. Thank you for bearing with me 1 second. I don't know if this is working. Everyone said bye to Caleb. That's very nice. Okay, Dominic, try to send one more request through. I don't know if that's going to work, but we're going to. Oh, I got it. I did it. Hooray. I think I did it. Guys, we did it. Hooray.
Hi.
Hello. Oh my goodness, I've never felt more like an aging, like I feel like my grandmother today being like, how can I do
Hey,
this?
I know there's so much going on now. I'm up on Instagram and I'm up on Twitter and I'm up on Facebook, and now with
Now
Snapchat,
TikTok.
TikTok, I know that I feel like I've aged out of being able to, or emotionally willing to learn a new piece of technology. And I know that it's just, I collect physical media, I have Blu-rays and whatnot, and I know that I'm just a hair's breadth away from being like, I don't want a new streaming service.
That's
But what?
exactly, yeah. No, I actually said the phrase to someone recently. I was like, no, no, no. I'm a, I do marketing, a PR, content manager. And they were like, awesome. Do you know? And I was like, oh, I refuse to do TikTok. Like I just 100% told them that I refuse to do it. Although I will say there's a lot of good dance videos coming out right now.
I enjoy the content. There's some really good cat content that's coming out of there. And I think I was put off because I did this social media meeting at the Television Academy, and the people running it were like, you got Facebook and you got Twitter. TikTok is new and TikTok is really hard. And then I was like, okay, never
And
mind.
do you remember Vine? This is not why I invited you on here,
Oh,
but
fine.
do you?
The 5 second one, right?
Yeah, and it was like you just clicked it
No.
and it was great. Oh,
Uh-huh.
I loved that. I'm very
No.
funny before it bursts, so it was very
Oh,
low
good.
expectations for
Uh-huh.
anybody else.
Yeah.
Well, how is LA? Any earthquakes today?
No, it's good. Today I did venture outside. So I got my face mask on and I walked to our old apartment because a package had been delivered there. Um, so it was nice to get some rays.
Yeah, it feels like a different way to be thankful when you're outside these days. You're just sort of, oh wow.
Oh, sunshine.
Yeah, I feel like a cartoon character just sort of like boop, 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 walking out. Um, well, I'm not going to keep you too long because I have a lot of questions for you about this.
Really?
I don't know when you jumped on the live, but it was basically just me and Caleb. Here's what you missed. We thirsted over Jonathan Frakes, obviously.
Uh-huh.
Um,
And,
we
and
obviously we're obsessed with how much Picard has to answer for himself in this series. We think that's very good thematically. And then what we landed on right before you hopped on was like, how does it feel to be the very first ever Beta Anari, a brand new species introduced to the Star Trek universe through you? Like, did your mind explode?
I'll take it. Yeah, it's really nice. And Neville, who's the creature prosthetic designer, was so nice. I turned up for the first day to have the mold done, and he came up with sort of concept pictures and was like, "Hey, this is the base look," and then, "How do you feel about hair and ponytail, and what do you think about nose rings and piercings?" Um, and for me, because I love Star Trek so much, and so I was like, oh my gosh, whatever works, anything, anything. What do you want? What is it going to be? Um, and that's a little bit out of my purview because then I don't know how difficult it is then for them to make holes in the prosthetics to do stuff. Um, and so I think they settled pretty close to the base design because then I was shooting for 7 days on that
Oh,
episode.
okay.
And so I think when there's wigs or hair involved, or like the nose rings and everything, I guess then it becomes a longer process for the effects warehouse to make everything or everything to be applied on the day because the process was pretty quick in the grand scheme of things. It was 2 hours in makeup, um,
But
which is
that was after all of the actual prosthetic fittings though, right? So you had to go and get
yeah,
like your and they made a cast and then they made
yeah.
like a silicone. Okay.
Um, I work on another show, The Magicians. Well, it's ended now, um, and that fitting process for that prosthetic makeup is 6 hours. So by
Well, you have
comparison,
horns on that one too. So there's like
mhm,
a whole head. headpiece.
Yeah, they have to glue a helmet onto my head, and then on the Magicians it's latex, and on Picard it was foam, and
Oh,
so Picard was just a cowl that went over the head, kind of like Batman. And
mhm.
then they just put the front piece on.
That's cool.
Um, so it was really, really fast and really light and really comfortable. And they first day they glued everything down to my shoulders, and so there wasn't a lot of movement like Batman. Um, and then the next few days they realized that they could just glue it down to the neck, and then so for the rest of the time, I had a lot of motion and was able to work really nicely in it.
Well, so you brought a lot of physicality to the role, and I actually like you brought such a humor to the role too, and real. I mean, to again, you're I'm a Star Trek fan from way back. So for you to be embodying an entirely new species, like we've never seen Nari before. So anything we know from them is going to be basically on your affectations and your mannerisms. And so I really appreciated how physically I felt you really embodied what they let us know of your character, right? Like even that line that you have about 1250 some odd receptors, and you can smell if somebody's telling a lie. Like I could feel you smelling him in that moment, I guess, if that makes sense. So like I think the physicality you brought to it was so great, and then the lightness too. And then I realized that Jonathan Frakes directed that episode. And so how
Mhm.
did you feel as an old school Star Trek fan kind of being in the old school episode of the season, right? You were in that throwback style episode.
Yeah, I mean, I met Jonathan again. First time I went up to have one of the prosthetic fittings done. The first time they were testing the makeup, um, and I was in the chair and they finished, and so they took me out, and so there's bits of foam and stuff on my face, and then someone came up and they were like, "Would you like to meet Jonathan?" And then I was like, "Oh,
You
what is
were like,
happening?
sure.
It's happening." And then they through to the dining room. They were on lunch, and so he was mid meal, and he stood up. He forgot everything that he was doing, and he threw his arms open and was like, "Dominic, welcome to the family." And then like, because sometimes as an actor it's a little intimidating turning up to a set as a guest star when everything has is established and the series regulars are there, and they're a unit already. And so to go into something like Star Trek, which is on a pedestal for me, um it was so warm and so welcoming, and then my eyes well up, and then I'm emotional and I don't know what to say, and I'm like, "Oh, thank you so much. What an honor." um Yeah, just and so lovely. And he runs the nicest set. He's so warm and so gracious and so collaborative, and he's talking with everyone, and the crew is happy, and
That's the
with
dream. That's not every set. That is not every set.
not at all. And like there are some sets that are glorious that I would work on every day for the rest of my life. And then there are sets that you go on and everyone is civil and everyone is nice, and it's like, okay, this is a job. I'm here to do my job. I'm going to do my job. But it's so very few and far between to get onto a set and to be actively not disliked, just personally, or feel an air of uncomfortable. It's maybe happened 2 or 3 times in a 15-year career. But it was so great, and he and Patrick have the warmest, nicest rapport.
Oh,
It's and delightful. And I'm a big Star Trek Voyager fan. That was my first that I watched from pilot to finale all the way through. I'd always watched the original series on Next Gen and Deep Space
mhm.
Nine, but I never saw it chronologically, and I would catch episodes here and there when I could.
Right.
So when I knew that Voyager was starting, I was like, great, I'm in it. I can start from the beginning. I can watch it all the way through how I'm supposed to. And so when I knew Jerry Ryan was going to be there, then again, I was like, what?
Yeah,
Um,
you honestly had the dream because, like, I mean, other than a Marina Sardis, like, you had every, like, classic actor in your episode, in your scenes, so working with Jerry Ryan must have been incredible. But then also, did you have a moment on the day where the character that plays Bjayzl, was that an intentional thing to make her look nearly identical to Marina Sirtis? Like, did that come up on set at all?
I don't think it came. It's something that crossed my mind and was like, oh my gosh, she has to be a Beta Z. But it was never raised. No one mentioned it, at least on the days that I was there. But she does, Nakar, does look incredibly similar to Marina Sirtis. And she was lovely too. It was nice because Nakar was there, and John Ailes, who played Bruce Maddox.
Yeah.
And so it's nice to go into an episode 2 with other guest stars, because then you're not on your own surrounded by these, historical legacy actors and characters. And because I can get intimidated pretty.
I can't even, I literally, just hearing about you talking to Jonathan Frakes made me nervous. Like, so I couldn't be you talking to him.
I did an episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. years and years ago now. It was one of my early jobs in Los Angeles, and I was excited, and in my head I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be part of the Marvel universe. This is so great. And at that time they'd only done maybe the first couple of, they'd done up to Avengers, and then they were doing Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So I was like, great. And I turned up to set, and a PA came up to me and was like, hey, we just wanted to let you know, the director of the episode had a conflict, so we have a different director for you. And then they led me around the corner, and it was Roxanne Dawson, who's B'Elanna Torres. And so then again, it was so unexpected. And again, I was like, oh my,
yeah.
And so then that it transcended the experience of doing Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. because I was like, working with someone from Star Trek Voyager. Yeah, it's delightful. Because they say don't meet
I
your
love
hero.
that. We have a comment. Oh, well, yeah, of course you get so nervous. And we had a couple comments. One was, I love hearing Star Trek stories about nice actors. And then Not Kale just commented that they love you on season 4 of The Flash. So I wanted you to.
I know.
Flash.
All my sci-fi shows, I get killed. Obviously, Picard and The Flash and The Magicians and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Doctor Who.
And The Good Place. And The Good Place. They killed you multiple times as Henry.
So I'm looking forward to doing a sci-fi genre. I love science fiction and genre shows. So I'm looking forward to my sci-fi genre show where I survive for a little while, where I ride the wave for a little bit.
I love that so much. Well, we've got 2 minutes left remaining on our live. I just had a pop-up screen tell me. So I will have, one last question for you, and then I want to give you a shout out to promote anything that you want. So we talked a little bit about it before you jumped on. With the Screen Club series, we talk about a lot of different TV shows. We've been doing it since last summer. And one we just focused on was The Good Place, of which you are an integral character, Henry. And you are a part of shows lately that have this idea of bringing existentialism and sort of existential philosophy to the forefront of mainstream media. How does that feel? Like, does that feel cool as also a comedic actor to bring that in? And, what does that take away?
I mean, I'm a fan of a lot of the shows that I work on, and Magicians touches on a lot of that stuff too. It's funny because when you're in the episode as an actor who just pops in just for 1 or 2 episodes a season, you don't see the big picture of what writers are going to do. And so often I'll watch the show and I'll be a fan of these shows already and be watching and then think to myself, oh my gosh, this is so nice to be a part of something
bigger
and profound. And The Leftovers too. I was a huge fan of The Leftovers, and then to be a part of that and watch the journey that they took towards the end and the journeys that those characters go on. I've been so fortunate to be a part of so many shows that deal with complicated stuff and things
Oh,
that I enjoy.
it's gonna cut you off, but I'm gonna go right back. It's gonna cut you off for some. I'm so sorry, everyone. It cut me off. It went live. We're live again. I'm gonna go live with Dominic as soon as he joins. I'm so sorry. I don't know how this works. I didn't know there was a time limit. Oh goodness. I'm so sorry, everyone. I didn't know that there was a time limit on this. So as soon as Dominic joins us again, we will go back live and let him answer that last question. Oh, why is there a time limit on videos? That doesn't make any sense. Shouldn't we just be able to go live forever? Hang on. Does anyone have any questions while we're waiting for Dominic to rejoin? I am so sorry. I did not know that it would just cut us off like that. But please drop them below. I saw that somebody mentioned that Dominic was the Star Trek Sean Bean. Sorry about that. I didn't realize there was like a time limit, but somebody commented as we were getting cut off that you are Star Trek's Sean Bean or Sci-Fi's Sean Bean.
Someone said that I should cut a reel together of all my demises on screen, or all the times they get beat up.
That would actually be pretty fun, and I bet if you just like tweeted that you wanted somebody to do that, somebody would the internet would probably provide that for you.
They'd answer. Yeah, I know. Instagram, I've been watching a lot of Instagram live videos, and then they reach that 55-minute point and they're like, oh my god, we're gonna get cut off, we're gonna get cut off. That's
what just happened, so I'm so sorry. But yeah, you're talking about when you are a guest star, you maybe just get your script, you don't necessarily get the whole, you
don't even get that. Sometimes you just get your pages and you're not privy to the whole thing. So sometimes it can be pretty insular, and you don't know where you fit as part of the whole. I did get the Star Trek script. In fact, I got two. I got the episode before as well.
How does that inform how you would play a character? Like, if you don't, I'm thinking about For the Good Place, right? For Henry, probably. With that show, you probably didn't get a lot of other outside stuff. So how does that inform what you would bring to a character, I guess? Wouldn't that be more, I feel like that's very difficult, no?
You're right in that I never got a full script for the Good Place episodes. And I guess a lot of that comes down to when you audition. I'm pretty good with doing my due diligence in terms of researching projects that the show creators have done before and what the writers have been working on. So you kind of get a feel for the tone of the shows and the pace. And then, you'll go, I'm being joined by Frodo Baggins. So you'll go and you'll audition, and then, if you're way off base in the casting room, they can guide you and say like, hey, this quick show, this and this. And again, it's one of my favorite casting offices to go in, and so they let you play and explore. And then again, on set, The Good Place is such a joyous experience. And everyone is so warm and welcoming that when a set does have that kind of environment, you feel more at liberty to play and explore and take chances that you might not take if it's a kind of locked down, rigid set where people are hassled and like, we're chasing the light, we gotta go, because then things get a little hectic. But yeah, Good Place is a joy.
I love that so much. Did they let you keep the boots?
No, actually, a lot of people, everyone asks me if I get to keep the boots. Then they're pretty uncomfortable.
Listen, I don't want you to wear them. They just need to be in a glass case on a book somewhere.
Inquired. They're size 13, and I'm a size 14 wide. And so in order to get the boots on, I don't wear socks, I wear tights underneath, or sort of stockings underneath. And then they lace the inside of the boots with talcum powder so that I can slide in. And then when it gets time to take the boots off, when the boots are on, they're on for the day.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, then it's me sitting on a chair, doing all my force to pull away as 3 or 4 wardrobe people pull the boots off. Footwear, and same with magicians. The magicians, I have sort of goat feet, and
Yeah.
they are size 14 stilettos, but without the heel. So I'm on the balls of my feet all day. And again, it takes 2 or 3 people to get them off my feet. Footwear.
I was gonna say, so you understand now when people who wear heels say that their feet hurt, you're like, I
I
empathize.
get it.
I get it.
I get respect for you. But you know, it's still a joy, even though like those things are like, oh man, these boots aren't the most comfortable. I'd still rather be doing that than anything else in the
I
world.
was gonna say, the day you were wearing those boots, you got to also work with like Ted Danson, so probably. Well, actually,
Never got to see.
Green Day, wasn't it? Probably.
I got to work a lot with William, and then in the makeup trailer, I would see Darcy from time to time, and Ted was on set in the 3rd season where I was in the hospital bed, in the 3rd season, and he was watching.
Because the train incident was all green screen, right?
No. Funny story. Train incident was what had I just left to do? The green screen segment of the train I wasn't involved in, but apparently that took an entire day the day before. And because I was working out of state, I think I was working on the night shift or something in Albuquerque maybe, and I had to fly back, and I literally landed at Burbank, went to Universal Studios, and then they did the live segment of me with my foot in the rail track. But the wide stuff and all the trolley stuff, they used a body double the day before.
Okay. No, that makes sense. I wasn't sure if it was just if they had done you green screen and put you in or not because of this. Like, it didn't feel out of place visually because of the fact that it was a simulation that Michael was doing, so I felt like it was fine. Yeah. It did seem like those were shot maybe on 2 different days.
Uh-huh.
Oh, but that's so fun. My goodness, you have a very fun job.
But I'm so fortunate to be able to love.
Well, we are super thankful that you took the time to join us. And just as a fan, I I know you in real life personally. We met years ago through our friend Mark. Obviously we don't get to see each other in person all the time, but we have stayed connected, stayed pals. As a person who has needed to consume art lately, I just have to say thank you because you brought me so much joy in that episode of Picard. And it was just, even if I didn't know you, you would have brought me so much joy from just everything you did in that story. And then now knowing that you are a fan and getting to kind of hear the layers of it, it just, I don't know. I just thank you. Thank you because it brought me a lot of brightness and joy last week to kind of, I specifically waited and binged it all together. I didn't read anything. I didn't let any, I just did. Oh, and it was, what a treat. It was so wonderful. So just thank you. It's great.
You're so to be able to save, because that's how I like to consume media. And so often I just can't wait. I can't stop myself. So I love when shows get released all in one chunk, because I will
Me too.
close the curtains and I will sit down and get cereal and be like, this is what I'm doing for the day. But I wish that I had the fortune to do that with Star Trek.
I specifically, I didn't
Didn't have
I'm going to be honest, I was not anticipating a pandemic, but I knew that I wanted to watch them all at once. And it was perfect. It was wonderful. And that episode in particular and everything you brought to that character was just such a an emotional anchor to the characters in the series that we know, while simultaneously really breathing new life into new territory. And it just, as a Star Trek fan, I just felt just so happy, just so happy. You know, that was all. Do you have anything you want to promote while we got you
Yeah.
here?
Well, thank uh, not that I can think of off the top of my head. I was working on a Nickelodeon show when we got shut down, so hopefully when everything picks up again, we'll bounce back into that, and a feature film breaking county that will, whenever it comes out, I guess. And that's with Juliette Lewis and Allison Janney and Aquafina and all these wonderful, wonderful actresses.
What a dream. Yeah.
So I can't wait to see how that turned out too.
Oh, wonderful. Oh, well, I'm so excited. And people can find you on Instagram and Twitter and all the places.
Mm-hmm. Did I lose you?
No, I think I can see you. I can't. There was like a delay, but you have You're good. I'm hoping people can hear.
On Instagram, I just won.
Yes.
And on.
Hi, kitties. Oh my goodness, they're all so cute. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, Instagram, I'm Dominic Burgess 1. Twitter, I think I'm just Dominic Burgess. There's a whole lot of.
There's a delay, so I'm seeing you
and a lot of
30 seconds before, but I'm very glad that you joined us. And I know that people are going to be able to find you, and they're going to be able to rewatch this video. And thanks again. Have a great rest of your day.
My